Welcome back to PhotoPie Tutorials, and today we're going to be talking about how to make the lighting in our studio match the lighting in the background image. Now the first thing we want to do is ascertain the light source in the background image, which in this case obviously is this large window behind them. Now we have several great reference points hanging from the ceiling. These orbs, these light fixtures, are light on the left and dark on the right. We have these shadows on the right side of the globes and on the back side of these chairs, and also the shadows that it's projecting. But these shadows are not as dark as they could be. You can tell there's a lot of diffuse light in this room. There's a very reflective wall behind them and perhaps other reflective walls in the room, maybe even a light source that's coming at them from the front. So what we want to try to do is make a dominant light source that's from the left and behind, that would come across their faces and from behind, but we also want to provide a significant amount of fill light as well. So what was done is a large softbox was placed to the left and behind. But I want to give a recommendation to the photographers out there that you want to point this more forward than on the same profile as the background. You don't want it grazing the background because it's going to give some really hard shadows in the folds or the wavy points or the places that you didn't get exactly straight. Obviously you don't want glare in your camera. You might want to use a gobo or just angle it just perfectly where you don't get it inside of your lens. But if you point it too much towards the background, you're going to have some unwelcome shadows. Okay, besides this dominant big softbox, which is on a higher wattage than the rest of the lighting, we have a smaller softbox which provides some of the fill and makes it where their faces are not complete shadows. And we also have a fill light which bounces off the ceiling and comes down in every direction, so we have a good consistent fill. So back to the image, when you zoom in, you can see the effect that was created. This softbox that was on the left created a great light that looks like it's coming from behind them. This shadow that's on his collar sort of shows you that it's not only is it to the left, but it's also behind. We have great light on her face and on her arms. Everything seems to match the environment that they are standing in, so it actually looks like they could be standing in this room. Now, one thing I want to show you in this tutorial that you probably would not have guessed if I had not shown you is that originally her posing was blocking the light scheme. It was blocking our attempts to put them into this reality of this pink room. So originally, her face looked like this. She had this shadow on her face, and what we had to do is steal ahead from another pose and Photoshop it on. So after we had done that, you can see that the lighting on her face matches what would be coming from the window, because in normal circumstances it would come through this hole in her arm and project on her face. But if the light wasn't really coming there, if we were trying to fake it, as we were, by a softbox on the left, then you're going to have this unwelcome shadow on her face, which needs to be adjusted. So moving on, I want to show you two more lighting schemes. You can see here we have this couple walking on a wooded road. Obviously it looks like they're walking somewhere around sunset time. It's the best light of the day, sweet light time, and it has an orange haze to it. So the basic things we want to do is try to recreate the light we see on these trees. It has somewhat of a hard shadow, and it's coming very horizontally from the left. There may be a slight vertical direction to it, but for the most part it's from left to right. And we also want the orangeness that's in the environment around them to project upon their face. So that can be done with the saturation tool. You can go to the sponge and then saturate and do a locational saturation on their face, or if you select their faces or certain parts, you can also modify that by doing image adjustments. So you can tell the lighting scheme was achieved appropriately. We have the left side of their face lit and shadows on the right that fade off softly here because his face is more turned in towards the light, but here we have hard shadows on her face that match the hard shadows on her tree. So if you compare her face to the tree, we have a very good match. And finally, we have one shot in New York. Now this shot is worth looking at because it's a nighttime scene, which has quite different lighting. It's not completely night yet, just a little bit after twilight, because we still see blue in the sky. But in this situation, you're going to have very hard shadows if you're making it match reality. You're also going to, with all these lights around them, you're going to have very bright highlights. So you're going to have a high contrast shot. You're going to have hard shadows under their chin and under the shadow spots, but really really bright highlights on their clothes, their body, and their hair. So you also want to take some of the color that's around them and put that on their face. So you can do that with just a higher saturation. You can use a saturation brush, or you can do a modification in image adjustments. So after you've done all this, you've achieved putting them in that scene by making the lighting match that of their environment. And so the goal in all of these background shots is to put them in the reality that's around them. So thank you for staying tuned to this PhotoPie video, and we'll have more to come.